As the government of national unity negotiations continue, could more parties still join? And let's speak now to ActionSA's Michael Beaumont to test their appetite for this particular government of national unity. Michael, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I saw a statement earlier on from the party, and you were talking about, the concern that you have, especially when it looks at, the negotiations behind closed doors and the seemingly, jockeying, as you putting it, around the positions and where this leaves the people of South Africa. Let's talk about that concern that you have, given what we've been seeing play out in the public domain.
Well, certainly ActionSA is very concerned, and we conveyed that concern to the ANC today, that we have a flock of opposition parties who are all rushing in to enjoy the perks and the benefits of government. And it's begging the question, who is going to be the opposition? Who is going to watch after a very powerful government that's now at over 70% of the South African parliament? And we're already seeing that there is horse trading, not just around positions, but around principles of good government, where we appear to be looking at a larger cabinet than ever before. We appear to see things like the premeditated defense of Phala Phala being negotiated as part of a coalition, and even a perverted form of cadre deployment where a particular political party can have its own appointment process for director generals. So we raised some of those concerns to say this is why we need a strong opposition in South Africa, and why we were keen to meet with the ANC to inform them about our role as a constructive, unofficial opposition in South Africa.
All right, so unofficial opposition, constructive, does it mean you're changing your mind, possibly, maybe, looking at joining the GNU?
Not at all. We were explicit in our meeting with the ANC that we will not be signing up to the GNU, although we did commend the ANC for the initiative of trying to create stability in South Africa and for the way they've gone about responding to their loss of a majority. I think credit must be given where it is due. But certainly what we have conveyed is that we think we need an uncompromised opposition in South Africa. We don't think you can be an opposition that is driven around in German blue light sedans while holding government to account. And that is why we see the importance of an ActionSA caucus that can play that role in an uncompromised fashion, but equally the importance to explain what we mean by a constructive opposition, because the past has seen opposition in South Africa that just voted down everything for the sake of it. So the nature of the communication today was to explain to the ANC that if they bring things across our desk that are meritorious and serve the South African people, we will support it. And when accountability needs to be dished out to wrongdoing in government, they must understand that ActionSA will be the spear, the point of that spear, so to speak, going forward.
Those who are part of the government of national unity will argue with you and say that they're there because for them, as they've been saying, South Africans want them to work together, and they're doing this in the interest of the people of South Africa.
Well, I think they seem to be doing it more in the interests of their blue light sedans and their government mansions, actually, because the truth is that the people of South Africa do expect political parties to work together. But to assume that the only way you can work together is by going into government and going into cabinet specifically is a perversion of the wishes of the South African people. The South African people expect political parties to work together, but we can work together in opposition to hold government to account, and we can work together as a constructive opposition. I think actually there's been a number of political parties who are seeing this as their sole opportunity to get into government, and they've forgotten the importance of an opposition in the context of a South African government that, let's be clear, now stands at 70% of the support in Parliament. And if we believe that power has corrupted in the past, we should be very concerned that absolute power is going to absolutely corrupt now.
You alluded to this earlier on in your answer, that letter by the Democratic Alliance as penned by Helen Zille. And, when you read that particular letter, of course, you get to that part that you mentioned around, the Directors General and all of that. And, of course, a lot of concern around possibly cadre deployment as well, as we're seeing on the other side, not only on the ANC. But The Constitution is very clear. It's the prerogative of the president to choose his own cabinet. But given the jostling and what we've been seeing in the public domain around some of the positions and the desired positions expressed by some of the political parties, is it so, in your view, behind closed doors? Is it still the president's prerogative, or is there something else at play here and a bit more persuasion?
Well, certainly, I don't think the fact that the Constitution places that prerogative with the president is going to change because we have a coalition. But certainly it must be understood that a coalition means that the president doesn't operate with, a universal mandate. His mandate is now the function of a variety of political parties, and compromises need to be made. I think what we are referring to as a great concern here is the things that are being compromised. Some of these things are principles of good governance. We cannot have, as part of the horse trading process, whether or not a party will bring accountability on the Pala Pala report. We cannot have, as part of the horse trading process, that this political party's ministers will appoint the heads of departments. That's the very cadre deployment that other political parties have been fighting for years, and it appears that fight now lands at the feet of ActionSA to carry forward.
And it's interesting that it's raised by the Democratic Alliance that took this matter to court.
Well, it is, but this is exactly the problem when opposition parties go into government, because very quickly one loses sight of all those principles that have been fought for many, many years. And the privileges and benefits that come with power very quickly cloud one's judgment. That is why we believe there has to be an uncompromised, unofficial opposition in South Africa, one that has not been paid and bought for, and one who can fight for the South African people, knowing that a government at 70% is going to be more prone to corruption and not less.